Hello guys, in this week's episode, at the time of this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the difference between a mirrorless camera and an SLR. So do not go anywhere, because in this video we're going to give you absolute value and sort of share some of the myths and sort of clarify what you need to know about these two cameras. Do not go anywhere, because I'm Dave from TVR Creators and I make weekly content on the best cameras for both YouTubers and hobbyists. If that sounds interesting to you, subscribe now. So first off, I'm going to talk about the SLR, and the SLR that I'm going to use as my example today is the 1300D. This is a few years old camera, but a really nice camera. And the main difference between a mirrorless and a mirrored camera is they basically have a mirror, funny enough. And the reason why these are bigger is because you need a bit of distance, a good inch or two, between the mirror and the sensor. So when the light goes through the lens, it has enough distance, and part of the light hits the sensor, part hits the mirror, and then the camera does all the heavy lifting. And then boom, you can take your picture. And obviously in a lot of cameras you have viewfinders, you have screens on the back, and you can take great photos and videos. And that is sort of the main difference. And then with the mirrorless camera, it has no mirror, and it has the full backing of the sensor, and it's obviously newer technology. The light goes through the lens, straight into the sensor, and off you go. And that's the main reason why there's a huge difference in the size between a mirrorless and an SLR. Now, what's the advantages and disadvantages of either? Now, back in the day, you know, a few years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, people would say, oh, you need the top of the range SLR camera because it's bigger and better and costs $4,000 and all the rest of it. And there are some, cool things about having an SLR. It feels more professional. It's more old school. It's bigger. If you want something that's bigger in your hand, that sort of thing. And they do look really professional and they look really cool. And what's quite cool with most of these cameras, they have interchangeable lenses. You can take really nice photos. But, bear in mind that phones are catching up, if as good as a lot of cameras. But what's really nice about this, it just feels separate from your phone. Something I've said a lot, and if you're getting value, check out our merch. There you go, a bit of water there for some value. But what's really cool about these is they just feel more professional, don't they? They're nice, they're just, you feel like you're a professional photographer or video maker, filmmaker, and off you go into the world to take your photos and videos. And question of the day before I carry on, what do you prefer? Do you prefer mirrorless or SLR, digital SLR? Please put in the comments below which you prefer and share your stories. Now, the mirrorless camera I'm using as my example today is one of our M50s. This actually is one of my favourite cameras, and it was my main camera for quite a while until I got the M2, which I'm using at the moment. But the main difference, as I've stated, is there's no mirror in this, which means they can make these cameras far smaller, slicker, more stylish. And I must admit, when I first got this, which was about 3 years ago now, I was a bit like, oh, it's a bit light, I'm worried about dropping it. But I'll tell you what, you can get grips to make them bigger if you so wish, but I got used to it. And initially I thought, oh, it doesn't look like an SLR, but I'll tell you what, it just feels so much more modern. And I've taken some great photos with my mirrorless camera. I've filmed more video with my mirrorless camera than I have done even my old cameras back in the day. And I have to say, this is probably the best camera I've ever used. And it didn't cost me $4,000. I believe at the time this cost about $600-700. And people think you have to spend thousands. You really don't. Being brutally honest, it's more down to us as curators, as hobbyist photographers, whatever you want to call us. And it's all about our personal skill, and we're all learning as we go through. But what's really nice, again, just like with the SLR, you can interchangeable lens. You can put an adapter, so you can put bigger lenses on if you so wish, or non-branded lenses if you want to try them out. They have all the cool features. Usually, they don't cost as much unless you get a really expensive full frame one. They tend to have more flip screens. I know the SLRs do as well, but they cost more still, when these tend to be a bit cheaper unless you get the full frame best ones on the market. And they're just really nice, and they take just as good photos, just as good video. And I've personally found, I don't know if it's just because of this particular model of camera, because it did cost more than my SLR, But I found in low light as well, it's really good at taking photos and videos in low light. This is just with a kit lens, which is 15 to 45mm. This comes with most M50s. And I just really like, and I massively value a mirrorless camera nowadays. I just think they're just so small and agile and just so easy to use. Please feel free to put your comments in the comments below. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And I'll just try and think of any little myths. You know, some people say SLRs are still the best, and you know, if that's fine, we'll you know, I personally feel it's down to personal preference. I don't think one is better anymore. A few years ago, I would still say digital SLR was still better, though it costs more, so that sort of makes sense. But nowadays, with the photos and videos I've done with mirrorless camera, I'm quite happy to have mirrorless camera, and I think mirrorless camera's here to stay. And for those of you that don't know already, before you had mirrored cameras, the really old cameras had 2 mirrors, so that's something to bear in mind. So just the evolution of camera, really. So I would highly recommend a mirrorless camera nowadays. But again, if you prefer and you like a good old-fashioned SLR, there's nothing wrong with that. So I just say, if you get value from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I make weekly content of best cameras for creators and hobbyists. If you have any questions, stick them in the comments below. And I just want to say before I go, I'm going to leave you 2 end cards that are going to bring you even more value. You probably see them floating around the screen at the moment. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. You guys rock.